prompt engineering is massive right now. I mean, you see these big corporations all across America hiring prompt engineers, just typing words. But the thing is those words can specify a workflow to automate the work of 100 people.
Right.
And all that's context too. You have to know what you're talking about. You can't just say, hey, do this and expect it to do it. You have to guide it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Anyreach Roundtable, where we explore how AI is transforming the way we work. I'm your host, Richard Lin, the CEO of Anyreach, and I have Sam, our AI engineer at Anyreach today for Meet the Team series. Sam, it's great to have you here.
Thanks, Richard.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on. And just for our audience, can you maybe share a little bit about your background and experience, just so they can get to know you better?
Yeah, sure. So I don't really have any formal experience, so to say, but I will say I have been messing around with AI within the past 5 or so years. Really started my freshman year of college. So there was this website called AI Dungeon, and it was sort of like one of those retro choose your own adventure text games. And I didn't really use it how it was supposed to be used at the time. I was kind of doing a little bit of prompt engineering there. So instead of playing along with let's say, hey, choose this door, I was saying, hey, I want you to act as a student writing an essay for this class on how AI is going to be used in the future. So yeah, a lot less informal, I guess, training or schooling, so to say. Did a lot of self-learning, and now I'm here. So
Yeah. And an interesting story of how we got connected. I believe I was posting on LinkedIn and X.com about different ways to utilize AI tools, and you gave me a pretty heartfelt message saying that you learned from one of my posts and you love to connect. And so maybe tell me a little bit more about kind of how that came about, in terms of your adoption of AI different tools, and then ultimately how did you get to Anyreach?
So funny enough, at the time was in the process of quitting my previous job. I had a lot more freedom with how to do stuff and was getting a lot more into what was taking off at the time, no code tools, kind of like Lovable and Replit Agent. So I was really researching through Twitter and used Grok actually to find a way like, hey, how can I use LLMs better prompt these AI creation or these AI app creation tools? And your tweet popped up. So I went, oh, this is great. I'll check this out a little bit more. So I looked into Anyreach some more, and I'm like, this is really, really cool. You know what? I'm just gonna send a message. Why not? And so sent the message, and you responded. Was not really expecting you to respond, but you did. And now I'm here. So
Yeah, no, I mean, and I quickly spotted kind of a diamond in the rough with your profile, especially after kind of jumping on a call. Really understand kind of your curiosity in AI, and you're really practicing utilizing these new tools to build side projects, even at your current job. So that was a very interesting interaction, and now we're here. And so as you kind of think about your day-to-day workflow at Anyreach and so forth, what kind of AI tools are you using today, practically speaking? Can you give a couple examples how it's provided benefit to you?
so day to day, I'd say I use mainly three tools. Claude Code has been my favorite recently, mainly with using MCPs that unlocks a whole different set of capabilities just that people don't even know about in general nowadays. And then the other two, classic ChatGPT, can't go wrong with the deep research, and more recently O3 Pro's research has been really, really good. It'll scrape with some good prompting, you can get it to scrape around 100 sources, maybe a little bit more. And then my third tool is still Grok on Twitter. It's by far the best tool to get up-to-date info, I would say. Just so quick. Like if there's something going on, something trending, that'll quickly type in Grok, hey, give me the rundown on this situation, and then I'm updated within the minute.
Got it, got it. And you mentioned something about MCPs. You know, some folks in our audience aren't kind of privy to the new technologies that are coming out. For folks that don't know, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. Sam, can you maybe talk a little bit more about what that is and then what's the benefit and how it's being used?
Sure thing. So, Model Context Protocol was a protocol invented by Anthropic around, I want to say, or they released it probably about early December of 2024 or late November. I saw it come out, or when Anthropic released it, I didn't really pay much attention to it. But it's basically kind of a unified protocol for large language models to do tool calls on different services. Like, let's say you have an API for Slack. Model Context Protocol allows any LLM, be it from OpenAI or Anthropic or Grok or even your self-hosted model on your laptop, to reach out to that API in a unified and streamlined way to just, I guess, makes it easier for developers and just regular people to access in general. It used to be a lot harder to set up some model context protocol servers. It used to be like an hour of configuring and then debugging, but nowadays it's actually pretty simple. A lot of websites now have a button that you can just click, connect to Claude or connect to ChatGPT, and it'll just automatically connect that tool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting with MCPs. I mean, you know, kind of the advent of the API. Not every, you know, company or, you know, service or product offered APIs back in the day, but as more companies adopted that framework, all of a sudden you have kind of an open protocol where you can actually bi-directionally communicate with different products and services. Now, MCPs are pretty much like APIs on steroids because you don't need to make that connection, you know, just as you mentioned, one click of a button. And I thought, you know, I've seen some really cool examples where, you know, say within ChatGPT, you can MCP into like Figma. And so similar to kind of like Lovable, where you're natural prompting, you know, a chat modal to get an app just created on the fly, kind of like, you know, it's kind of like magic. You know, with MCPs, you can, you know, talk with ChatGPT and say, hey, I want a Figma design on a mobile app with these kind of buttons for food delivery. Click enter, and then Figma, you know, will start creating these visuals within the Figma application. So it really kind of opens up a lot of, as you mentioned, new capabilities with, you know, tool calling and using AI to essentially work within existing kind of tools to do the job that normally, you know, you would have to hard code or use, you know, use your hands essentially, right, to go create these designs or, you know, and so on and so forth. I think, you know, as more companies adopt MCPs, we're going to see a lot of really cool functionality where the LLM chat layer is, you know, overlaid on top of existing kind of, you know, tooling and functions. So, and, you know, as you kind of think about these different tools that you've adopted over the years, and even now where it seems like there's a new tool every day, what challenges have you encountered with, you know, your day-to-day workflow using AI, and then how have you, you know, overcome them?
So I would say biggest challenges right now are just like anything, it's just you got information scattered. Your information isn't unified. Because I mean, okay, so let's say, what's the best way to say this? So you can have ChatGPT, right? And you can give ChatGPT anything, but context is key. You can't dump an entire book's worth of information and ask for one really, really niche point and expect an accurate answer. You really want to give it that correct context.
Mm.
I mean, that's like giving a person a book, telling them to read it all at once, and then asking them what the color of a character's hair is that the author mentioned one time. I mean,
It's not going to be great, right, in terms of the output.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very. I think that is one of the difficulties that we're seeing companies trying to solve right now, is allowing the user experience to be easier for just regular users. is right now, I mean, it's kind of a whole subset of itself, but prompt engineering is massive right now. I mean, you
Mhm.
see these big corporations all across America hiring prompt engineers just typing words. But the thing is those words can specify a workflow to automate the work of 100 people.
Right.
And all that's context too. You have to know what you're talking about. You can't just say, "Hey, do this," and expect it to do it. You have to guide it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we've seen this quite a bit, in other kind of podcast interviews where in order to wield the beast that AI is, first understanding what the job you're trying to do is so crucial, right? You can't, and I think a lot of folks go into AI thinking, hey, if I, just ask a very obscure one-liner question for something that's actually very complicated, my expectation of the output is it's just gonna give me the right answer, super detailed. It's gonna be 100% accurate, and that's just really not the case, right? I mean, at least not yet. We'll see where we get to when we get to Systems 5 AGI, where these agents are fully autonomous, massive organizations that you can just give 3 words and somehow it's just going to predict what you're thinking about and give you the right answer. But yeah, context matters. It's kind of like you wield these PhDs, right? These agents, especially in the reasoning models. But just like a manager, you have to give clear instructions of what you're trying to accomplish, why, and provide all those details in a way that's a little bit more streamlined so that AI can actually consume it and give you the right output. Um, and so that's kind of a good segue because, at Anyreach, you're kind of the prompting god. I think a lot of folks come to you and say, hey, how do I structure my prompts a little bit better? And we've seen some pretty amazing prompts come out from your side. Can you maybe tell the audience, what is your process of generating and structuring really good prompts so that you can get, an amazing output that's as close to 100% accuracy as possible?
So I should really actually create a prompt to analyze all of my past interactions, but I don't want to say it's an instinctual thing, but it kind of is. You have to learn kind of the nuances of different models. Like as you know, a reasoning model is going to behave entirely different from just a model that just straight up gives you the response. And as a result, you have to prompt it differently. But what you want the LLM to give you as its result
Hmm.
also depends. Let's see. So I would say there are four or five main parts of the prompt that I normally go on. It's you give it context, you give it a task, you give it your output format, and then what's the other one?
Maybe provide examples.
No, it's not provide examples because some. So from what I've discovered playing around with a lot of the recent reasoning models, is few shot prompting. You don't really have to do anymore.
Hmm.
Maybe if you really want to guide the output just a little bit better, but if you specify in your output format, like I want you to give me a bulleted list, uh, don't use any tables, and describe it as if you were a college professor lecturing a student, uh, it'll give you that output. Granted, it's going to be variable, but sorry, I'm just I'm going scattered. But honestly, that's
No, it's
kind
all
of the
good.
way my prompting works. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's an art form, but it really is. It's almost a different form of poetry,
Hmm.
kind of, because you're actively putting your thoughts onto, you're actively putting your thoughts into words, which is then a model uh, creating or doing research or doing a task and putting your thoughts into physical form,
Hmm.
in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because, there's this new concept of how um, essentially AI consumes information and how you speak AI language, right? And it is very different than like how you and I would talk to each other in email, Slack, on a phone call. Um, and the concept here is there's a new trend around, for instance, SEO, search engine optimization. That was kind of the old way of how Google would index different web pages that are relevant for a user's search query. But there's a whole new kind of opportunity now where SEO is kind of dying in terms of its capabilities because people don't want to really search and click through pages to find an answer. They just want the answer directly, right? And so there's something called GEO, which is like generative engine optimization, where the ChatGPTs, the perplexities, whether it's deep research, web search, or anything else like that, when someone's actually querying for an answer and there's links provided, right, of, hey, you asked for XYZ, here's the answer, answer A, answer B, answer C, here's the reference links of where we got this information. On the back end, it's very different than how Google search would index and consume that data. So content actually on the web is now changing to be less educational, informative, and becoming more direct in bullet point answers, right, in blog posts and so on and so forth, because that's actually more easily consumed by AI to be able to present it across these kind of chat modalities. So, on that kind of principle of like, what is AI language? There's so much variations from prompt engineering to, getting indexed on these AI tools. That's kind of really kind of changing the game. So, staying ahead of that is so key. And so kind of looking ahead, how do you envision being an AI, practitioner, if you will, how that industry is going to change, in the next 3 to 5 years, and what are your thoughts on that?
So I think we're going to see a lot of people who normally wouldn't be in a technical role, like
Mm-hmm.
leading a team of programmers or leading just a product team in general. I think we're about to see a lot more of the creation of a kind of a manager role,
Mm-hmm.
delegating. So having like an overarching goal, right? Like let's say I want to make a widget business. Well, you don't know how to build a widget business, but you have AI agents that do. So what's going to become a very, very valuable skill is being able to delegate the correct roles, responsibilities, and tasks for those agents to execute on to then be successful in basically, I don't want to say replacing jobs, but I mean replacing jobs. Why hire 10 employees that only work 8 hours a day when you can manage a team of AI agents that can work 24/7 for you? I mean,
Right. Right.
almost a no-brainer. Um,
Yeah, I actually think that's a really interesting topic where, as you mentioned, the skill set is to be like a really good manager. Like, what are the goals? What are we trying to achieve? What players do I need to achieve that goal? What are their tasks? And really being able to outline that rather than doing the individual work of each kind of individual contributor. And, on the topic of AI replacing jobs or its impact on the workforce, my theory here is just like any sort of tech cycle or, revolution. Like when you think about the industrial revolution, farming and agriculture and so forth was kind of replaced with machinery. And folks thought, oh, this whole, economy is going to be impacted because we're never going to have farmers anymore. We're not going to have people, using their hands to create, blankets or whatever you want to call it. But those same folks essentially just transitioned to a new job, right? Like who's going to manage the machines, right, for the Industrial Revolution? And it's kind of a similar space, when I think about a really good middle manager or an executive that may be replaced, at a bigger company will end up actually maybe even starting their own company because now they have the ability to actually do it without a huge kind of workforce, right? So we're definitely seeing that kind of trend where some of the monotonous jobs will be replaced, right? Those low-level jobs and so forth. But the folks that were in those roles will eventually move into kind of where AI is heading, right? For maintenance of that, or maybe even starting their own business, which is obviously beneficial for anybody looking to, not work the 9 to 5, right? All right, awesome. Well, as we kind of close up, any last, kind of closing remarks, thoughts about kind of AI trends, and then any kind of things you're working on Anyreach that you're pretty excited about?
uh, Rocco's Basilisk, of course, got to mention it. Just kidding. Don't put that in the final. But so you know what it is. Okay. Uh, But actually, I'd say a lot of people are very doom and gloom about AI going into the workforce and taking a bunch of, I guess you could say jobs. I mean, we're already seeing it with big companies like Microsoft and I mean, essentially every big company laying off massive amounts of employees already. I think that's going to stabilize in a sense, but I think that's kind of like you said. We've had many revolutions in a sense, like industrial revolution, had the dot-com bubble era, and each of those brought new new tech where people freaked out. Oh no, it's going to be the end of jobs, and people aren't going to work, and oh no, it's terrible. People are going to be poor. Like you said, this is going to open up an opportunity to where so many more people are going to be able to work for themselves.
Mhm.
It's almost creating a new economy in a sense.
Yeah.
Because I mean, well, you go back to the 1800s and people used to work for themselves, right? Uh,
Mhm.
you used to own a plot of land, worked on your homestead, and I mean, you worked for yourself. You didn't really have a big conglomerate company that you went to college to go study for 4 years and then work for 20 years and then maybe some more and then retire. Uh, wasn't That's actually a very fairly recent thing, and I think AI is going to bring back that sense of, I guess, self-sovereignty
Mhm.
for workers, just because
Yeah, now it's so much easier to like, get things up and going and having ownership, right? Where you're not bogged down by all the kind of locked in domain expertise for different kind of roles. Not everyone, get the opportunity to actually build for themselves. And I was listening to a recent interview by Mark Andreessen talking about the future of AI is, the skill set is going to be folks that have a breadth of knowledge to be able to manage these agents because you don't have to go depth anymore because these models will essentially have the PhD capabilities to actually go down, the areas where, most folks, don't have the time for to learn it. It's kind of like, what is it, with Japanese sushi masters, you have to wash the rice for 10 years, right? Before you can move on and actually make the nigiri. Now you don't actually have to spend 10 years washing the rice because AI, at least, in theory, right, for digital experiences, AI can wash that rice for 10 years. You just need to know that you need rice, right, and fish. So why not just open up your own sushi store versus trying to, spend 10 years just to get to the nigiri step. So, well, awesome. Thank you for joining, Anyreach Roundtable. I'm sure the audience is going to really appreciate kind of your perspective on the different tooling and where the trends are going. Once again, thanks again, Sam, and appreciate you being on.
thanks, Richard.
All right, awesome. Thanks.